taking the white Pit Pastel as the first pencil, and I'm just going to map out all of the light areas on the focus piece, just to get an outline of where I want these lights to go. So I'm looking at the reference photo, judging where the lighter fur sits, and then just putting a light sort of representation down on the paper. So this doesn't have to be, it can just be very sketchy at this point. You're literally just mapping it out, just as a very sort of light base foundation layer, if you like. In a drawing, you will always go through what is an ugly stage. And it seems to last quite a long time. It's only really, I would say, when you are like 70%, 80% that the drawing that you'll start to see it really coming to life. And that's because there's so many layers to realism that you have to go through the messy point and the messy middle, as it were, before you put on the finer detail. So don't despair if it does look messy for a little while. You will go through and come through the other side. It's all part of the process. When I first started, I used to look at the mess and really sort of focus on that messy middle and think, am I ever going to get out of this? And I used to think, oh, I'm just not doing this right. But if I'd stayed on, you know, persisted a little bit longer, I would have found that I would have got past that messy middle bit. And actually, it's only the final layers that you really start to see the realism in it. So we have to go through this process. Always look at your reference photo and see the direction that you need to place your pencil. The underlayers, as I mentioned before, you don't have to be too precious, but always still go in the line, you know, the way that the direction is going, because even if the underlays and you start to put the midtones and that on, they will come through, so they need to be in that direction. All right, you're not putting on the fine, you know, the fine details, but you still need to map out the direction that the fur's going. So the rest of the journey, the rest of the piece will flow. Sort of blending with my cotton bud. All right. Now on that cotton bud, you'll see at the other side of that there is a tint of where I've used it before. Of course, don't use that on the part that you're blending, because you'll of course transfer that onto your image. Cotton buds are fantastic for blending. You can use your finger, as we've done previously, and also paper stumps as well. So I've just gone in with a cotton bud just to get that initial colour down. So again, using the other side of the cotton bud, the black part, so not to transfer any of the brown onto the areas that I want to keep black, and vice versa. A blue is a fantastic colour to use when you're doing those sort of highlighted parts, because they more often than not are not pure white. So the reflections will be from the surroundings that the animal's in. So it could be that the sky is reflecting in, so whereby a beautiful blue, not necessarily all over the catchlight, the highlight, but in parts, so you can really reflect, and it just sort of deepens it, just makes it look less flat, and more realistic. And holding the pencil with the pressures, when you hold a pencil closer to the end where the point is, it will give you a sharper point, and generally your pressure will be harder. which is great in certain points such as this, where you want that sharp line. Holding the pencil further away, and an angle will give you, for shading for instance, obviously will give you that lighter result. So holding the pencil at points that is something that you'll get with practice as well. And I was very heavy-handed when I first started as well, so I really had to learn to ease off on that pressure, because I was just sort of flattening the tooth way too early before I'd put on all the final layers. So the tonal values really are more important than colour, the lights and the darks. Of course colour is important, but if you're using colours but you've got no sort of contrast between your lights and your darks, then it's just going to look flat. So that's a real, that's an important part of art, is getting the tonal values. And again, when I first started, I was really quite frightened on going dark too much, because I didn't really know how to balance it out. And again, that comes with practice and just trial and error and just playing and having fun and learning from each piece, which is what you'll do. You'll take something away from doing this and use it for your next part. So just going over the darker areas, the same as what we did the other side, putting in the darker lines and textures in first of all. Moving away from the eye socket area, putting in place the positions of the shorter hair there will go across the nose part. And now sort of going in with the midder to dark in between, just to darken those areas up. Sort of putting those strokes away, for those longer ones, away from me. But then the shorter hairs is sort of a more of a sort of up down stroke. When you go into the black area, such as we've just done there, just ensure that you wipe your pencil off with a rag or tissue before you go back on to the white, because otherwise it will take the pigment with it if it's still there on the pencil nib. Looking at the reference photo at each point and seeing where do I need to add more, or where do I need to remove, or where do I need to blend, or where do I need to glaze. Just always sort of checking it, seeing what needs adjusting, if anything. At this point though, we are really just refining it all. And just remember that the eye, he's looking not directly at us, it's slightly at an angle away to the side, so it's not that eye pupil's not going to be dead centre, and so therefore that sort of reflects in the remainder of the eye, in terms of how that eye is looking. Just glazing over that part. You might want to sort of go back to the eye and just refine even still, leave it, come back to it later. I might do the same, and just see if I can sort of touch that up a little bit. But that is the beauty of it. Just give your brain a sort of a break and go back to it and just see what you can just sort of touch up, if you need to and if you want to. So I think we're just going to come to a close on this. You can sort of overwork a piece by going in, so we'll sort of just go over with the grey just to get those last little bits in, the finer detail, because they were quite white over there in the clumpy areas. So that's good.